Next up, we will have a power talk on typography reimagined from tradition to modernity. Our speaker is Mr. Emilios Theofanous, creative type director of Monotype. In addition to sharing his insights on designing typefaces, he has brought with him some exciting AI tools developed for Monotype fonts to present how they can enhance search and font discovery and curation. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Theofanous.
Brilliant. Can you hear me? Yeah. So it's Theofanous, so that's Greek, so hence the difficulty, which is okay. So, hello all, it's a pleasure to be here. So just to give you a bit background about myself and who I am. So I'm Emilios Theofanous, I'm originally from Cyprus, I'm now based in London, and I'm a creative type director for Monotype. I really like the subject of this year's conference, so intersections. So just to give you a bit of background about myself, I studied mathematics, so not something you would expect in a design discipline. And I also have a master in digital arts. And then I studied type design in a SAType in France, which is really nice because this year's partner country is France. So bonjour to my good French friends. So let's enjoy. I always like to start from the beginning. So as humans, we always like to capture our imagination. We always like to think big and explore what's around us. We started by painting. So for thousands of years, information was transferred as image. And then we developed written languages to be able to talk about our imagination, to read and write, to think, to be able to drop down information and keep it there. So for the next few years until today, information is transferred through writing. And this information is stored in quite a lot of complicated writing systems. And as humans, we are very curious and we are very entrepreneurs as well. So we developed a plethora of technologies to be able to reproduce this technology, to have information, again and again and again. So from metal and wood type centuries ago to the digital fonts that we use today. And once we've overcome this initial obstacle of having the technology to reproduce information, we started stylizing it. So what we did, we started designing fonts. So thousands of fonts for every occasion, which is what we do, and we still design new fonts every day. So you might ask, why so many typefaces? And my mother also asked this question, so what do you do for a living? Which is quite intriguing to explain. But the answer is not that complicated, at least for me. So new ideas, they require new letter forms. So we have to design new typefaces. And this is not a new question. So people, have been always curious, why so many typefaces? Or we're trying to answer this question. So this is a newsletter from 1933, a Monotype newsletter, so 91 years ago, which is almost a century. And the author asks the same question, like, why so many typefaces? And I'm not going to go through everything, just we don't have to read it. We don't have this much time. So the resume of this, it's like these few points. So there is a need to have type that it's recognizable, something that can really distinguish you from the competition, especially when it comes to branding, because brands are unique and they need to have their own identity. Legibility is something that still comes into conversation a lot, especially over the last years. More and more, when we work with clients and brands, this is the first request they have, accessible typography. So we see that the theme here is that even though these questions are a century old, they are still adhere to today's conversations we have. Technological advancements and how they affect the way we design fonts. Back then it was metal typefaces. You had big machines that they used to produce typefaces. Nowadays we have digital computers and we have new technologies and new formats such as variable fonts and so on. So typographic trends as well affect the way we design. And not only typographic, but also cultural trends or language trends. So how this affect the way we design typefaces and how this expanded to the graphic designers that use our typefaces. the need for choice. People are very, how do you say, curious creatures. We always want to have more, more, more. So there is a need for choice and the need to be able to choose what is best suited for a project that we are working on. And of course, all of this and how they affect the people that design typefaces. So the resume is that we design new typefaces because we actually need new typefaces. So we don't do it because we are crazy. We do it because there is an inherent need to create, like every creative aspect of design, either this graphic or art or sculpture or poetry. We design because, it's nice to design. So this is a quick reel of projects from the Monotype studio over the years, often created with creative agencies across the globe. And the need for good typography, it's evident. So you can see how type can really affect how a brand looks and how a brand communicates with their consumers. And it's really, really important, especially today more than ever, the way brands are operating across globes and regions and also in different media, from print to digital. So having a coherent typographic appearance is very, very important. And the need to choose a type, it's not only about how the typeface will technically work, it's also about how it emotionally affects users. So this is a question, again, that more and more comes into conversation with brands. So how does typography affect consumers? So over the past years, we've worked with a neuroscience company called Neurons to specifically research how typography affects the users and how they can connect better with a brand. So establishing, brand principles and translating them into type design can be quite difficult and challenging. And this is what we do day to day in the studio, like working with brands, understanding what their needs are, how we can translate this typography, so these brand needs and tone of voice into typographic needs. So the research has been actually quite interesting, especially, again, more and more as brands expand into different regions and the way they operate. So type can really make your message memorable. So this is very important for brands that need a unique voice and they have a unique message. Type makes your customer feel secure. This is very, very important for industries like finance and banking and all of this, because if there's no connection and trust between the consumer and the institution they're working with, then it's very, very difficult. So typography can really be the connecting link between the user and the brand. Type really gives brands a competitive edge, and this is, we see it every day, like when a relaunch is done, a brand can really, really work, and it's in a positive manner when typography is used well. A lot of times the branding might be flawless, but if type is not good, it can really make or break a brand. So basically the initial results that we did, they showed a positive boost of reaction from users to brand perspective up to 13%. So this is a huge increase of how people feel about brands, which is quite nice. And it also reassures what we've always believed, as designers, that type really has a sense. It really can really make a point. So we've done the research across the globes in the different countries, from the UK, France, Portugal, Australia, and we're also expanding in different regions because it's not, one solution fits everything. So we have different cultures, we have different writing system and different languages. So not all the results can be, applicable. It's not, a magical wand, unfortunately. So we've done also research in Japan just to show something from the research. And here it shows that, for example, typefaces like this one, which is Tazugane Gothic, which has a humanist and monolinear design, can really help convey innovation, which this is very, very helpful, especially for startups or tech companies in the region. A more calligraphic design, like this Micho design, for example, it can really convey trust and authenticity. So again, depending on how these are used, can really enhance a brand's tone of voice. So it's really, really important for graphic designers as well when they choose a typeface to think not only about how the type affects the look and feel, but how it also emotionally connects with users. So it's really, really important to be able to speak our end users' language, both literally and typographically. And in the Monotype studio, this is what we do. I mentioned earlier some of the projects. So what we do is we curate and we suggest typefaces for brands. We design new typefaces. So we are very busy all the time trying to help our clients and our brands to be able to communicate as best as they can across the regions and the media they operate in. And we also design new typefaces, and we expand our library. So since I'm here, I also wanted to talk a bit about take you on a journey behind the scenes of how we design typefaces. So this is Tuvlo. This is one of my typefaces. So Tuvlo means brick in Greek, so hence the bricks on the background. And it's like an homage to London, hence the name brick. There are a lot of bricks in London. So type designers, we really like books. So this is my library. I love books. I like sci-fi movies. I like built-in blocks. And the reason we love books is because they contain letters, so lots of letters. And we specifically like type specimen books, which used to be catalogs of printers, which showcased typefaces. So this is an example from 1905 from a British foundry, which basically included this typeface, which served as inspiration for my typeface. So this was called the Grotesque number 6, because also just to give you a bit of historical context, back then, typefaces did not have spectacular names as they do nowadays, like, for example, Helvetica or Futura or Dean or whatever. So back then, they were just called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 46, so whatever, there was the number going up. But the reason this was interesting is because it had a very interesting contrast, so like the vertical contrast of the typeface, and very nice small details in letter forms, the way it was designed. So Tuvlo, it's not a strict revival in a sense that I try to clone this design. So it's a reinterpretation of the feeling of an era and the culture designed for a more contemporary usage. In a similar manner, the italics, back then not all typefaces had italics, so the printer used to have like one italic that would use with any other sans serif they used to have. But what's interesting about this design is that it's quite condensed and very, very calligraphic, which is not something that you often see in sans serif design. So again, you can see very, very calligraphic forms. And also, it's also very important if you can and if you're able. So this is a lot of research that was done, just a glimpse of it from different other foundries of the era, just to be able, again, to capture the culture and how other designers of the era and punch counters and engravers used to design typefaces. So the process when you design something from archival material or historical sources, usually we scan a letter form, and then we try to trace it like in Illustrator, or if you are not a type designer, or if you are, we use glyphs. This is the app that we are using. And this is where the personal touch as well comes in. So every designer and every person, each one of us, we are all different. So all of us will, in a different manner, trace this. And this is what makes it quite unique and interesting. A lot of printing and a lot of corrections, and this is like the day-to-day of type designers. The same way graphic designers would work around, or any other designer, a lot of concepts and sketches and all of this. I also like ornaments, so nice engraves of peculiar animals. So these used to be ornamental frames that printers used to separate either chapters or different sections of a book. And this really were a really nice inspiration to create some drop caps, which is basically what the designers would use at the beginning of a paragraph of a page. So these were quite fun to design. We don't use them as much nowadays, but again, sometimes you need to have fun when you're working on a project. So this is a final typeface, just showing like the depth and breadth of the design space. And some videos just showing a potential usage. So these were used for marketing. But the reason I have it here is because it's always rewarding for designers of any kind whatever you do in the design space, to then see it on the wild and see how people are using it and how it really comes alive, or how brands are using a typeface, or if you make a poster, you see it printed on a wall, it's beautiful, so you're very, very happy. So it's really rewarding for designers to see how things evolve and how interesting they can be. And talking about, process of designing type, so this is what usually we do. The specific project I showed was for me, but similar manner of research goes when we also design typefaces for clients. So this is an example of Tencent, which is a Chinese typeface. And what's interesting about this design, who also has matching Japanese and Latin, what's interesting about this design is that it's quite slanted, and this is not something that you will traditionally find in Chinese character. So unfortunately, there's not a magic wand, as I mentioned earlier. So when it comes to designing type, it needs a lot of small adjustments and optical corrections. So basically, you slant the character, it's not optically nice. It looks quite funky. So you really need to go in and start fixing all of this to make it work as expected. So we have a team of designers in the region that are able to really, really enhance the design and make it look appropriate. Another example from the region, this Alibaba Sans, a quite legible typeface and a nice one, designed to be used across different media as well, from print to all the touch points of the company, from the stores and on the web and everywhere. And this is a more recent one. This was designed with Interbrand, and this was for Boehringer, which is a pharmaceutical company, one of the largest in the world. And it's very, very interesting because it also works with pharmaceutical products for both animals and humans. So the design had to really, really try to encompass the modernity that the company is moving towards, but also a lot of their brand values. And in addition to this, the complex typographic systems that they use for the pharmaceutical leaflets that they have in the products and all of this. So we designed the typeface that has a variable optical axis as well that can be very, very legible when used in very small sizes. And I mentioned the word variable fonts. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the term, but just to give you an overview of what this technology is. Basically, it allows the fonts to be alive, to flex, to do whatever you can possibly think, to animate, and basically it allows brands and designers to have some fun and be way more expressive. They can also be quite technical and interesting. So in this case, I'm showing a variable font for Helvetica Now variable and how it can be used in a design application that most designers are used. So what it allows the user to do is really fine-tune the typography depending on the intended usage. Like, is this, for example, going to be a display typeface? Is it going to be used in very small sizes? Is it for long copy? Do I need to make it like slightly narrower to fit in one page, the paragraph? So variable fonts really, really allow for complex typographic hierarchies and for users to be able to, control the minutiae of detail when they are designing and having to create layouts. So one example, so variable fonts are not only for having fun, and doing nice animations. They can be very, very practical, especially when they're used on the web. So again, Helvetica Now variable shown here, and it can show how a font can be quite adaptable and responsive. So it can change proportions or weight when used in different devices, in different orientation or dark mode, and so on. So as I mentioned, what we try to do, we try to enhance our library by reimagining either fonts that have been here for a while, like Helvetica, for example, or adding the new technology to new fonts, which really can help designers use them to a contemporary environment. So this is Helvetica Now variable, just a small video. I was part of the team when we worked on this, and what's interesting is that when you have to work with something, like a beast of Helvetica that everybody knows and loves and been using across the globe, you really have to design it with purpose. So this is not just to, for the sake of it. You really design a new typeface that really offers something new to the user. So it has optical sizes, a variable font, it's also better designed, and so on. So design with purpose and choosing typefaces with purpose is really, really important. And we tried to do this across different scripts as well. So this is an example of M. Shang He. traditional Chinese. So this what allows the user is, again, to have more control over the weight, but also for Chinese typefaces, in case you are not aware, they are quite complicated. They have thousands of characters. So for example, the size of a typeface can be quite big, the size of a font. A variable font can really compress the size. So this is very helpful when used on the web, especially for UI and UX. So designers are really, really happy when they get to play with variable fonts. And of course, variable fonts and all our fonts, thousands of them, I think about 170,000 as of today, are in the Monotype fonts library. But you shouldn't be afraid of the number if you're a graphic designer going to choose a typeface. The journey of choosing a typeface should be quite enjoyable, and one should having fun, when they choose a typeface, because we design type for people to use it and not, get angry when they try to find a typeface and how to use it. So we've been working a lot. So our studio team with the beautiful typographic knowledge and our engineers with their technical aspect, we've been working a lot to create different AI tools that can really, really help search and curation. And again, this is very important because once you have, thousands of choices, the value of the choice, the importance of being able to confidently choose something is quite important. So just to show some examples of what we've been using AI for. So one of it is similarity engine, which it actually does what it says in the name. So you find the typeface, and if you want to find something similar, let's say it's not that, so you click the button, you get similar results. So it's quite easy as that. The other one is pairing, which is also a very common request that we get from brands and designers. So if you want to pair a typeface, let's say for text and for heading, or you're doing a magazine and you would like something to set like very big and something very small for legible copy and so on, AI pairing can really, really help, at least to get you started. So it's AI. Nothing is perfect, so we are trying to do it. So we work a lot to improve the models. But yeah, quite interesting. And the last one I wanted to share is contextual search. So this is not out yet. It's still under development, and we are playing with it with our engineers. But just to give you a bit of a background context why this is important. So usually as type designers or graphic designers, we might talk about type with what's in the left rounding thing here. So we have genres that we put type in. So we might say, this is a humanist, or this is a gothic, or this is a neo-grotesque, or something like this. But people don't speak like this. People don't speak, with type design or graphic design terms. People might see a typeface and say, this is a very clean, lovely typeface. So they will not say this is a neo-grotesque or doing something like this. So what we are doing, contextual search, really, really allows users to search by using natural language, which is really, really revolutionary in terms of how people with not a lot of typographic knowledge, or anyone really, can go in and say whatever they want. So this was a search for a startup company, like a comfy coffee shop. So basically, you can get typefaces that AI thinks might work for this, so you can rate them as well, like if they're good or not. So we are still training the model, trying to make it quite as smart as us. Maybe it's not possible, who knows? But we are trying. So that's contextual search. And I think I have 10 minutes more, so I was very, very fast. So the last section that I kept for the talk, it's AI and type design. So AI, it's everywhere. And it's all we talk about. But for a second, I would like to just focus on design. So as creatives, for many, many years, we've been using a lot of tools in our workflow. So either this can be like from social media tools, or it can be like practical tools like applications or research that's been done, or augmented realities, VRs, and all of this. So not only we've been using all these tools, we've always wanted more. People, as I mentioned earlier, want more choice. They want to be able to have more opportunities to work with things and new updates and all of this. So that was all okay until the coming of AI in the hands of the masses and, to everybody. So everybody today can use AI to create something, either a video or a picture or whatever this might be, an illustration. So this brings the question, so basically, what is AI creating? So is this creating something that's really new, or is it just using, recycling references, and based on them, it can create something, and then the question becomes, is it really something new? So I think it's important to understand why these questions come up, and very often the questions come because users, so that's us, we don't understand what's happening in the black box of the machine. So quite often, we just write something and we get a result which appears to be magical, but it's actually quite not. So it's a lot of code and information behind it. So this is very tricky, especially today that this technology is not analog, so we cannot really take it in our hands to inspect and understand what's happening. So it's really, really important for corporations to be transparent about how they're using AI, and also for people to try and understand. There needs to be a willingness from our side as well, from designers, to be able to understand, it froze, why and what is happening. So this brings me back to the type design and how we've been using type design, at least to experiment AI and type design in Monotype. Just a quick parenthesis here. We recently released our AI code of ethics, which basically what it says is that we are trying to keep the human aspect of our industry at its foremost. So we are using AI to basically help both graphic designers and type designers when it comes to typography. So graphic designers in the sense of search and curation and discovery that I just shared earlier, but also type designers in the sense that it can really enhance our workflow. So when we're designing a typeface as type designers, we usually start from a few characters like this. So we might start from adhesion. This is how we call it, or hamburger for Steve. So basically, it's a few characters that the key DNA of these characters and the design aesthetics can really influence the design of the entire typeface. So basically, where AI can really help is if we design a few characters, AI can really extend the character set, and not only in Latin, it can really help with maybe other languages as well. So when AI can expand the character set, then a designer can come and enhance and finish and refine the design. So in a similar manner of what I explained, as I mentioned earlier, CCJK fonts, that is Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, have thousands of ideographs, so they're quite complicated to design. So in a similar manner, a typeface that can take months or even years to develop with the help of AI could really enhance the process. So a designer can, design, let's say, 100 glyphs, and then the rest, the thousands of them, can be generated by AI, and then a designer can go in and help. So all of this on the screen. So if something looks like quite wrong for you, or that it doesn't look perfect, it's okay if you speak the languages. But all of these are generated with AI. So they might not be perfect yet, but the idea is that we are trying really, really hard to be able to enhance our design capabilities and be able to offer more choices to the people in the region, more reasonable times and so on. So with that, I will leave you, and I hope you enjoyed the talk. Oh my God, I have 6 minutes. I really fast. I talked very fast, but it's okay. I'll be around if you need me to talk about type. Let me know. So thank you very much.